Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Across the Park podcast. It's the big match preview, Monday Night Football on Sky Sports. What can go wrong, Lee? Lee the Dorset Spur is very, very kindly joining me to preview Everton versus Tottenham Hotspur. Lee, first of all, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, like I just said to you, happy as any Spurs fan can be right at the moment.
If anyone feels the frustration, it's an Evertonian. We're going to get into that. Before we get into the big match preview, what we try and do on these shows is when we get a fan of the opposition on, it's just to have a look at the season so far through your eyes, because we see what we see, and with all due respect, we don't really care about other clubs. So it's nice to get you on and give a sort of opinion. I've always thought Tottenham are one of those teams who should be doing better. I look at the team, I look at some of the money spent, I look at the stadia, and I just think, why is that not a team who's bringing multiple FA Cups? Why is that not a team who is in multiple Champions League semi-finals? That's my question to you as an outsider. Why does that not happen? Because you seem to me like a really, really great team, and it just doesn't quite happen.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, and I think if we all knew the answer to that, we'd probably be better off than we are. But I think Antonio Conte kind of summed it all up in his rant after the Southampton debacle, and that it really comes down to a mentality thing for us. I honestly believe that Tottenham Stadium is built on an ancient Red Indian burial ground or something like that, because we are, like you say, we've got all the tools. All the tools are there. Everything's there. We've had, two arguably world-class managers in the last couple of years. They couldn't do anything with us. So it comes back to a mentality thing. And I guess the issue always comes back to what is success for a football club. The owners see one thing, the fans see another. So, I honestly do feel that plays a part of it. There's lots of people that disagree with me, but for me, I think the owners are looking for Champions League, top four. That gives you the money. That's what they're interested in. And so, all the while they're achieving that, they're happy. So, but as a fan, obviously, we want other things, don't we? So, yeah.
It's Look, I think everything's relative. So my opinion on this is, I look at Tottenham and think, why are you moaning? But then I understand that a team in maybe Championship or League One will look at Everton and say, why are you moaning? We want to be where you are. So I think it is all relative. I'll still ask the question. When you've got Champions League football each year, when you've got that stadium, when you do bring in those world-class managers and you're not hamstrung by FFP, you spend some money, why the unhappiness? Why so unhappy, the fan base or part of the fan base?
I think it's a difficult one, right? Because obviously I'm an older fan, so I can look back at good times when we played decent football and so on. I can also look at the times when we played poor football, and I can look at the times under Pochettino where we were entertaining, we were progressing, and so on. And you kind of get to a point. I think that the moaning comes from the fact that the football hasn't been good. It's been poor. The investment in terms of players, we've spent money. Absolutely, we've spent money. But every time we spend money, we bring a player in, and they never seem to really hit the ground running in the same way that other clubs tend to do that. They get a player and they'll really kick on. We get a player and it kind of fizzles out and turns poorly. Ndombele is probably a big example of that, where we paid big money for this guy who had a big reputation, was going to be the next best thing, came to Tottenham and basically just turned into, a guy who'd like to go to McDonald's and stuff his face. And that's kind of how he ended up. So, but like you say, it's all relative. But a new stadium, fantastic. I know you guys are having a new stadium. but a lot of people always live in the past. They always live in that, what it was like before. The grass is always greener and so on. And I think we absolutely needed a new stadium. But that stadium, even though it's on the same place and everything else, it's different inside. It's a fantastic facility and all the rest of it. But atmosphere is poor a lot of the time. Only when you're playing teams that you really hate, your West Hams, your Arsenals, your Chelseas, your Liverpools, man, those kind of games there's a great atmosphere. Other times it's not as great as it could be. And I think, the big stand for us is the South Stand. And our away fans are at the other end of the stadium. So that doesn't create that bit of atmosphere that you would kind of want, So there's always a downside to all the good stuff that you do. And the stadium was about taking us to the next level. And I think as a Spurs fan, you don't feel like you've been taken to that next level. You've kind of been a bit mugged off. We pay an awful lot of money to watch a team underperform, playing football we don't really like. So I guess that's kind of where we are,
No, do you know what? I think that's a really interesting answer, because again, from the outside looking in, if somebody asked me, are Tottenham better now at the new stadium? Are they better than what they were at White Hart Lane? I'd probably say I don't think so. I'd probably say around the same. I think there's Champions League qualification, and there's always, when we play Tottenham, God, we're playing a really good team. I don't think he probably kicked on from the outside as much as even an outsider would think what that stadium does. And that's maybe a little warning for us as Evertonians to maybe look at that and go, it's not the be-all and end-all. Now, I don't know what was happening or what was communicated to you by your club when it was happening. What's being communicated to me by my club is this is the shining beacon of light. This will change everything. And I think, I don't want to talk about Arsenal, neither of us are Arsenal fans. It took them an awful long time for that shining beacon of light to happen. So I think what you're saying there is really interesting. Maybe it's not the be-all and end-all. Maybe you do get a few more commercial deals. Maybe you do get a bit more revenue. But at the end of the day, it's the football on the pitch, isn't it, Lee? It's the football on the pitch. And brings me to this season. I was looking at your latest results. Now, again, I don't know a lot about Tottenham. I know from the outside. So when I heard the Conte thing, the Conte press conference, and I had a little look, I was interested on what Tottenham fans were saying online. I think a lot of Tottenham fans were saying, yeah, he's absolutely spot on. And now I looked at it and thought, okay, that's a team third or fourth in the league table. Can it be that bad? And then I look, Wolves 1-0, Sheffield United 1-0, the Champions League, Europe Champions League. Leicester, there are some really, really disappointing results. So on the pitch, from the outside again, in the Champions League places, but that's a really bad run. Where did it start to go wrong?
So, I mean, I think if you look at the Champions League positioning, we're in there at the moment. We're in a very precarious situation that we could drop out of that fairly easily. You only need Liverpool to pick up their games in hand. You only need Newcastle to pick up their games in hand, and you're back into sort of 6th and 7th. So I mean, inconsistency has been our biggest thing, and the teams around us that would normally be pushing for those spots have been poor as well. Liverpool have been poor this season. Chelsea have been poor this season. So it's kind of given us the opportunity to kind of be in my opinion, a false position. We've had some good results this season. We beat Chelsea. We broke that hoodoo, which has been a problem, and obviously West Ham. We had some good times around those kind of things. Man City as well, but in games where you really need to pick up those points, we've been poor. And I think the Southampton game really summed it up. I mean, before that, going out of the FA Cup, we all felt that was a really good opportunity. The selections that the teams that we've had to play have been kind to us. And there's been a real opportunity for us to kind of push on and really get somewhere and get that hoodoo of a trophy. I'm not saying we would have won it, but it gets us closer to that opportunity. So that going the way it did was the start of a real bad feeling. Limping out of the Champions League the way we did was awful. I mean, absolutely awful. I mean, we literally watched it, and it was like watching a team that were 3-0 up that didn't have to try.
Do you know what? I turned it on. I made an effort that night to say, what are the fixtures? What's on telly? Send the kids to bed. Tottenham are going to give these a game. And even I was thinking, where is this?
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely appalling and shameful. And then, of course, you know, you go to Southampton, and I was at the Southampton game, and had we not drawn that game, I think we would have been having different conversations now, because we'd have been in third. Conte wouldn't have had his rant. We'd have said, "Oh, it was a poor game, but we got the result. We ground it out. We got where we needed to get, and we push on." And I think it really just highlighted how poor it was. And it was a bad decision anyway. I like drawing the game. We shouldn't have drawn the game with that penalty, but we shouldn't have let them back in it, you know. And it just kind of summed it up. And I think initially everyone was looking at what Conte was saying and going, "You're bang on." You know, it was lackluster. It was lazy. There was no effort in it. But Conte has to take some of the blame as well, right? His substitutions were poor. You know, he went defensive. You're inviting a team on that are scrapping for their lives, right? You know, they're not going to give it up. You know, they're scrapping for their lives. And there we are kind of just defending it when what we should have been doing was putting them to the sword. It kind of, for me personally, it all started really going wrong around the Sheffield United result, then the Champions League and all the rest of it. And like I say, there's been bad results in there, but with the other teams playing poorly, it gave us false hope that we were gonna at least get by this season. But I'm not confident. If I'm being honest, I'm not confident that's still going to happen.
We'll get to predictions, and we'll get to the run-in and where we think both clubs will be. The Conte, I think you brought us perfectly onto the Conte press conference post-Southampton. I think any football fan, regardless of who you support, watched that, because even if you didn't watch it live, you heard about it. I'm one of those fans who didn't watch it live, but my mates were saying to me, "Have you heard what Conte is saying? It's a come and sack me press conference. It's a come and pay me off," because he attacked everything. It was the mentality, the dressing room, you know, everything. Was that coming, or was that a shock for you?
I was shocked that it came out in the way it did. Normally managers keep that kind of stuff to the dressing room and that. And I think that's been the biggest criticism, is he should have been talking to the players about that. But because we don't know what goes on in the background, he may well have been having them conversations. And he's just got to a point where he's like, "You know what? I've had enough of this. These guys are just mugging me off." And I think, looking back on it now, we kind of go, "I probably shouldn't have done that. You know, it's not good for the football club and all the rest of it." But in my view, when you've got a passionate guy like Conte, who's been through a lot this season, I mean, he's had his gallbladder out, he's lost a couple of really close friends, you know, and I think maybe it's just put his life in perspective. You know, he's watching that shower turn up and do what they did, and he's probably just thought to himself, "You know what? Life's got to be better than this. You know, there's got to be more to my life than watching these guys crumble at every opportunity." Because
sounds like me, mate. Sounds like me.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't have crashed out of the Champions League the way we did. We shouldn't have lost to Sheffield United the way we did. And that's got to be a mentality thing. And I think if you're working hard all the time to improve your players and get them set up to win the games, and they go out and you feel like the effort's not there, then you're going to be frustrated, aren't you? You're going to be frustrated. And I think he probably just looked at his life and thought, "You know what? I'll take an extra 5 million in my pocket, and I'll just go off and I'll pick up another club somewhere else, and I'll go on to start winning trophies again, and it'll be all right."
Has the decision been made that you're going to stick with Ryan Mason till end of the season, or you still think? What's the communication from the club? Is that now till May, or do you expect maybe someone to come in?
No, so the communication from Tottenham is always poor. Daniel Levy doesn't really talk to the fans. He doesn't really give us anything. You'll get the odd announcement that comes out, and basically what they've said is Stellini's staying until the end of the season. He's going to be supported by Ryan Mason, which we didn't see. You know, Stellini's a great friend of Conte. He's been with him wherever he's been. So it's odd that he's staying, but it kind of makes sense to a certain extent, because you're gonna kind of keep some consistency until the end of the season, when they can kind of sort out what they're going to do. For me, a lot of people have been talking about Pochettino, and I think if that was going to be a plan, then they'd have probably done that already. So that says to me they're looking elsewhere, and they're trying to see who they can get. But who wants to come? Who's going to want to come? Given you're looking at, you know, these two managers just leaving, getting nowhere, and going out really frustrated. Who's going to want to take that on? You've got to have some real confidence in yourself that you're going to be able to do something that they couldn't do to take that job on. Yeah,
it's fair. Before we move on to the match, a couple of players I want to ask you about. There was a really, really important Brazilian forward for my team playing last season, and I'm not sure. Again, we're talking from watching from the outside. I'm not too sure how much you've seen, but trust me, from the inside, he was so important. As soon as he scored some important goals, there was a mentality changing around April where he put the club on his shoulders, and he said, "I'll drag you over the line." And he was part of the reason why we stayed up. I don't think he was ever our best player, and that sounds silly but we've had some really good players who played with him, and it wasn't until maybe last season that he really stepped up. When we lost him, I was devastated. I'm talking to Charlison here, for anyone who's not clicked on the Charlison. When we lost him, I was devastated. He had a connection to us from the outside looking in. It's not worked for the Charlison at Tottenham. Is that fair? And if so, what are the reasons? What's your opinion on the Charlison as a Tottenham player?
Number one, I would say, when he came to the club, I was really excited because we'd been crying out for someone to back up Harry Kane for a long time. I was really excited. I think he's a great player. I love his attitude and his shithousery that he does. He's the sort of player. He's the sort of player you hate in another team, but you love in your team. And I've liked him. I think he's good, and he's shown an awful lot of work ethic. For me, it's probably not worked because he's struggled with injury. And he's struggled with getting in the team and finding the best position for him within the team, because he kind of plays from the right or whatever, rather than playing as a striker. And he probably would prefer that, playing sort of further up the pitch. So I think he's probably got frustrated with the tactics that Conte's done. I think he's probably got frustrated with the lack of football, and he's had injuries and so on. So I think it's a bit unfair to judge him on this season. I know a lot of Tottenham fans have, but I think he's quite split. I think a lot of Tottenham fans really like him, but then there's an element that don't, and you're always going to get that. But I think, to judge him on one season would be harsh. I like him as a player, and I think he could do good stuff. It's just having the right manager picking him in the right positions and giving him some proper regular football, as opposed to a bit part, from time to time.
Yeah, it was what you're saying there rings really. It's taking me back to when we had Carlo Ancelotti. Carlo Ancelotti set Everton up where he had Dominic Calvert-Lewin as the number 9, and he asked Richarlison to support him from the left, and Richarlison did not like that. Richarlison wanted to be the number 9, and we've seen, not too sure if you remember, but in the COVID season, Richarlison was grabbing penalty kicks. He was grabbing the ball off Gylfi Sigurdsson, and he wouldn't allow our captain at the time to take the penalty. He was on the pitch fighting with players. He wanted to be a goal scorer, and we seen some negative moments with Richarlison when he wasn't allowed to be that. What I would say to you is I don't think he'll ever be Harry Kane. I don't think if Harry Kane was injured that it would be just put Richarlison in, but I do think you've got a good player there. I don't know how you fit him in your team. Another one I want to ask, I think you signed him in January. There was rumours that Dan Jummer was at our training ground. He had the Everton training kit on, doing his medical, and he'd done some in-house media. The law of Champions League football, the law of Tottenham Hotspur came, and he got in his car and he went. It's not happened for him. What's your opinion on Dan Jummer?
I haven't seen anything of him at all. I saw his big part where he came on as a substitute, scored a goal, and I haven't seen anything of him since. So I can't tell you anything about him because he's just not been around at all. So which is disappointing, because we have been crying out for some changes mid-game and stuff like that, where he probably could come in and give you something. But we haven't seen it. So it's a real strange one, and I get it, right? If they're saying to you, come over here, we've got Champions League football and blah blah blah, that's going to be a lure for a player who's not aligned to a club in any way.
Lee, I'm not silly, mate. If I'm not an Evertonian, it's Tottenham or Everton. I'm not silly. It's Tottenham.
Yeah,
I can see why he's done it, but it's just interesting. I mean, I'm as you probably noticed by now, I'm expecting Richarlison and Dan Jummer to score on Monday night. It's the most Everton thing ever that will happen, that these two will have the game of their lives. Talking to fellow Evertonians about this game on Monday night, it's a game Everton can't lose, and to play such a good team and go into a game you can't lose is really tough. Now, that bottom half of the league is more congested than the Tube on Friday 5 p.m. It can be anyone from 12th to 20th. It's so tight. So the worst thing is everyone's picking up points. You're going from 19th to 13th, then back down to 17th. We're all playing each other. Point I'm getting at is some Evertonians are saying it's a good time to play Spurs. Some Evertonians are saying that team are maybe not what we from the outside think they are. Maybe it's a good time to play them. Maybe Conte has got it spot on, and that will have a negative impact on that team. Other Evertonians are saying Antonio Conte will be watching this game live from wherever he is, and Tottenham players will want to stick it to him, and it's a dangerous game. What Tottenham team shall we expect on Monday night?
You know what? You'd need to be Mystic Meg to know what Tottenham are going to turn up on Monday night. Right? From a Tottenham perspective, I would want them to be coming out and going, right, we'll show you who's not got the right attitude. We'll show you who's not got the work ethic. We'll come out and we'll do the business and really play as well as we can do. But I can't guarantee that that's what's going to happen, right? Because we've still got Stellini, we've still got Mason. They've been coaching under Conte. I'm expecting them to play the same system because we're struggling terribly with injuries. We've got loads and loads of players out injured. So I think the squad that he's got to pick from is quite limited.
Okay.
So I'm not expecting. I'm not guaranteeing that we're going to come out and play really good football. And that's the real disappointment. And for us, it's a must-win game as well. If we want to maintain this position of Champions League, then we've got to win the game. But it's not guaranteed. It's absolutely not guaranteed. So for me, I know we'll get into kind of score predictions and stuff, but I think it's one. I think it's one that could go either way, and probably will end up somewhere in the middle. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's a safe bet, and man would maybe look at a draw. I get that. I think it's a difficult game, and at this time of the year, we've said at the start of this podcast, it's relative. I think my team have to win. Now, you're bringing different problems to the table that you need Champions League football, and you're saying that you absolutely have to win. So it's a game that, again, your football club are going to go in and go. And again, any Evertonians who are watching this, I'll be honest, Tottenham should really be beating Everton. Everton have got to really have a lot of things going on Monday night. I'm really hoping one of the things that we do get is that you don't come in with the right attitude. I really do hope that Tottenham have been rattled by what's happened over the last 2 weeks, and I do hope that, as you know, if you've been to Goodison Park before, especially when the floodlights are on, it's a dangerous place for an opposition to come. People will have been on the ale all day. People will be going into, people will have had the kids because they're off school and dying to give the kids away for the night time and get out with the mates, and it'll be loud. And I think when Tottenham have the ball, there'll be boos. I think the crowd will have a big impact. I think it'll be a really, really good game. Just talking about Everton, what's your opinion, again, from the outside of what's happened? Because it wasn't so long ago that Everton and Tottenham were sort of the team who, it was one of those teams who were going to break the old top four. Tottenham went and done it, but Everton were there with Tottenham. From the outside, when you're looking at Everton, what do you think's gone wrong?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I've been thinking about it. Like, since you guys contacted me, I've been thinking about Everton and my views on Everton and all the rest of it. And I have been to Goodison Park. I've been a few times. In the 80s, was a great place to go to and stuff. And it is a strange one because I kind of felt like we've always been a fairly similar kind of club in that, we've both got big rivals that have done lots of good stuff and achieved a lot. Both play in red. We both hate them teams. We're kind of close rivals, and we've kind of have a great history. We've done good stuff in the past, and we've been known for decent football and stuff. And I'm not sure what's kind of gone wrong, because at one time I saw lots of money being paid into Everton and buying lots of decent players and stuff like that. And again, like you said to me earlier, we kind of just didn't kick on. Although we've kicked on a certain bit, whereas you guys probably didn't kick on to where you wanted to be
right down the other way.
And it's kind of been a bit like that. And I think same for us, the constant change of managers and stuff like that, and that just never helps. I think obviously Frank Lampard coming in was probably a big mistake. That's probably put you back a fair bit. And so it's a real disappointing situation because there's some big clubs out there that have gone through an awful lot of this. If you think of Villa and Nottingham Forest, who spring to mind, that when I was growing up, they were really good teams, up there doing really, really well and winning big cups and stuff. And they've suffered with relegations and all the rest of it. So I guess it can happen to anyone. I genuinely don't want it to be Everton, if I'm being honest. I'd prefer that you didn't go down. there's other clubs I'd much rather see the back of than Everton, you know. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I honestly can't put my finger on it. I think sometimes these things just happen. You think you're going in the right direction, and then it just doesn't happen for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But you know, hopefully you guys will be okay. Not hopefully on Monday, but you know, hopefully you'll get enough out of the rest of the games that you've got to kind of keep you out of it.
It's a bit of a mess at the minute. I'm not too sure whether you've seen, but the Premier League have referred us over to a panel because they've seen a breach in the 21-22 accounts. So we're looking at some sort of penalty now. Whether that's a fine, whether that's, please to God no, points deduction, or whether that's a transfer embargo. All three would hurt, but the points deduction would kill us. So we've been referred over to a panel to look at. So being an Evertonian, Lee, is a bit of a prank at the minute. It's like, you know, if you've seen Saturday Night Takeaway where someone's in their ear telling them to wind people up, it feels like someone's doing that to my football club. It gets worse every single week. And I think what you're talking about there, I think one thing that both of us have, and a couple of clubs you've mentioned there, Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa, massive football clubs who maybe in recent times have not put a lot of trophies in the trophy cabinet. But because our parents and our uncles and our family who are older than us have seen such good times, we're brought up like this is the best ever thing. Now, a few lesser clubs, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to some clubs who are down there, maybe their supporters are not brought up like that, and 17th and 16th is acceptable. When it happens to someone like me or a Forest fan, or if it ever happens to you, it's so hurtful because you know how big you are. And I think other clubs fans look at that and enjoy it. Look, I would enjoy it. I enjoyed Newcastle going down. I think that's an arrogant bunch of supporters, but fair play to them. They've watched what we've done, and they're doing the opposite with their billionaire, and they're making it work. We're the example of what not to do. But again, all relative. Going into Monday, we don't know what Tottenham are going to get. I'll tell you what Everton you're going to get. You're going to get an Everton team who will play for the second ball on set pieces, and then they'll sit back and they'll try and nick a 1-0. And you won't get an Everton team who will come at you in the first minute. You won't get an Everton team who will try and outscore you. You'll get a disciplined team who will try and nick the game. What's your prediction, Lee, on Monday night? How's it going to go?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assumption of what we're expecting from Everton, and that will be difficult for us because we don't have a player with creativity in the centre who can kind of play those killer balls that's going to really make the difference or whatever. We play from the wing backs who historically haven't been great in terms of crossing the ball and stuff like that. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be one of those where we'll probably cancel each other out for a lot of the game. Yeah. And my personal view is we can't go in the game and not give a goal away. I think that there'll be goals in it. Set pieces we struggle, and we don't take very well at pressure. So if Everton start to pressure us when we're in defence, then we'll probably crack and make a stupid mistake. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. Obviously, we're so lucky to have a player like Harry Kane in the team who can produce something out of nothing. And if he's on fire and he gets an opportunity, I think that will be the difference for us. In terms of score prediction, I'm like I said to you, depends which Tottenham turn up, but I'm kind of expecting a draw. I'm kind of expecting something like a 1-1 or a 2-2, something along those lines, because I can't see us not letting a goal in. Going and say that, we could probably turn up, play really, really well and give you a really good game and come out 3-0 winners. Yeah. Now I've said it'll probably be a draw, but I literally don't know what to expect from this team. I really don't.
Yeah. There's been some good games in across the years for the neutral. I remember the FA Cup game. I think Everton won 5-4 in lockdown. I remember you coming to Goodison and winning 6-2. There's been some high scoring games. So I don't think Everton have got the personnel to give a high scoring game. I think if Everton are going to win the game, it's going to have to be 1-0 or 2-1. But I'm mindful to put my score prediction at 1-1. I think a goal for either side. In either half, sorry. I think that's probably my prediction. And do you know what, Lee? I'd be happy with that. If I can wake up Tuesday morning and we've took a point off Tottenham and we're just... Because Everton have got 4 games against teams around us. So for me, if you get 12 points, you stay up and you've got to beat the teams around you. Tottenham, with all due respect, I think Everton could win the game. But again, realistically, I'd be delighted with a draw. If it was a draw, I presume that you wouldn't be happy. So what would your score prediction be?
No, I mean, a draw's not enough for us. If all you're playing for is top four, if you're going for top four, then you've got to win this game, and you've got to beat teams. With all due respect to Everton, you've got to be beating Everton. If you want to be top four, it's as simple as that. Especially in the predicament you're in, So for me, like I said, I think it will be a draw. I think you're probably right. It'll probably be a 1-1 or a 2-2. I mean, I would want to see us a 2-0 win. That's where I'd like to see us get to. I'd take a 1-0 scrappy off of Young Min Song's backside if it meant that we got the 3 points. But like I say, it really just depends on how we turn up and how we play on the day and the opportunities that come. So.
A prediction for the rest of the season for both teams. Tottenham Champions League, Everton stay up. That sounds okay to you?
That would be ideal for me. I do think Everton will stay up. I think you've got some teams around you to play that you should be able to beat, and that will push them further down. There are some clubs in real trouble down there, so I think you will stay up. I've got a horrible feeling that we won't get Champions League.
Really?
I think a lot depends on today. How do Liverpool get on against City today? Because that'll give them confidence to push on. I mean, I'm hoping obviously that they don't. I obviously want City to win, not just to keep them out, but to obviously put the pressure back on them lot down the road. But I got a sneaking feeling we're going to end up sort of 5th or 6th this season. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think it gives us an opportunity to maybe play in a competition that we should take seriously and try to win, rather than putting all your eggs in one basket and just playing for top 4, which frustrates the life out of me.
Yeah. Look. If fingers crossed, if we're okay, we'll catch up again next season if you're kind enough to come back on the channel and preview the game. But for any Tottenham fans who've discovered this we'll put the hashtag on YouTube of Tottenham Hotspur and Tottenham and Everton versus Tottenham. Any Tottenham fans who are watching this and don't know who you are and what you do, what's coming up over on the channel, Lee? Because we've got your hashtag down there for Twitter, but you do a YouTube channel. So what's coming up and what can fans expect?
Yeah, so essentially I do a YouTube channel. I try to review games, basically just give my opinion of how it went. I also talk about any news coming out of the club, all that kind of stuff. And I do get a little bit of guest stuff on a few different channels. So you can see me about. I'm on all the usual socials and stuff like that. So if you want to hear an old bloke moaning about Tottenham, then I'm the place to be. So.
And any Evertonians who are watching this, any Evertonians who are new to this and just finding us on the Everton hashtag, if you want to watch an old guy moan about Everton, we're over on the Twitter and the Instagram. It's @AcrossTheParkPC. Really great to do over 30 minutes with you. It's really kind of you to come on and give us some of your time. Like I said, hopefully we'll do this again next season. But thank you so much for joining us on Across the Park podcast.
No problem. Great to be here. Thanks very much for having me on.